Welcome back. Now, in the recent years, intellectual property has played a major role in the growth of the fashion industry. Now, today in E-Magazine, we're trying to understand what are some of these rights and how can it help you as an individual in the fashion industry, and why it's important for you to exactly understand these laws and what they do for you. Now, joining me today is Liz Lenjo, founder of MYIP Legal Studio, who is an IP and fashion law expert. Thank you so much for joining me, Liz.
Thanks for having me.
Great. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks. Just a little bit cold.
It's a chilly day. Now, Liz, let's just jump right into you breaking it down to us. What are some of the different types of IP laws and how do they apply in the fashion business?
So basically, intellectual property law is an area of law that helps any creator or innovator to protect the expression of their ideas. So it does not protect the ideas in their raw format. And that's why I use the word expression of ideas. So we have patent law, which is the highest form of protection in intellectual property law. And the threshold is very high because it has to be novel and new and industrially applicable. And what this basically means is that new and novelty means it has not been done by anyone in the world. It has never been seen. There's nothing, there's no trace of what we call prior art. So basically it does not have any trace of ever having been done before. And then for us in Kenya, we look at the industrial applicability. So which basically means that it can be used en masse, right? And it has this very scientific element. So for a patent, it has to have some sort of scientific or mechanical element for it. Now in fashion, you can see that, where there are innovations that involve technology or scientific applications. I'll give an example of the Nike shoe that lights up. They were the first person, or rather the first body to have registered something in those lines in terms of lighting, a shoe lighting up, basically. So depending on the kind of innovation in terms of patentability, it can apply. And patents take about 2 years to achieve, and that's because the different intellectual property offices across the world have to talk to each other and investigate what I call prior art, so that then they can grant you this particular patent. The good thing is that the patent holder gets to enjoy these rights for 20 years, and sometimes plus 2 years, the 2 years that has been used in the investigation of the patent. So maybe 20 to 22 years of exclusive use, which means anyone who uses this patent that you have claimed has to get a license from you, and should they fail to get a license from you, they will be liable for patent infringement, and we're talking of a lot of money in terms of legal settlement. So no one ever wants to be in such a situation, right?
Okay.
And then we have trademarks. Trademarks are very important in the fashion industry because this is what protects the brand that has been created by a fashion designer. So it's the creative use of a name, a symbol, or a brand, or even numbers, or even colors, right? So as long as it's not descriptive of your fashion product or your service or product, then it gains the trademarkability aspect. Look at Adidas, for example, the name Adidas itself, the 3 stripes. Look at Jimmy Choo, for example, used his name to create a brand, which has some dangerous aspects to it. So maybe we can talk about that later. But as long as it's not descriptive, you get the trademark.
Okay.
Trademarks are also, something I should have said earlier is that IP is territorial, so you have to protect it in the different countries you want to use. So a registration does not automatically entitle you to a registration across the world. It means if I'm in Kenya, then I get registered in Kenya. Then if I want to do business in the US, the UK, then those are different registrations. With patents, it tends to be a little special because during the 2 years, you have the opportunity to have what we call a priority claim. So in the areas of interest, then you also ensure that your interests are taken care of in that area. So especially countries of manufacture, for example, are very important to be considered in this strategy. So back to trademarks, they're renewed every 10 years. So once you have registered it, then you have that use for 10 years and then you renew it. Don't wait until the 10th year to renew. Always, be on the lookout and very vigilant as regards that. Then we have what we call industrial designs. Now, industrial designs protect the aesthetic element of anything that is created. So the beauty aspect of it, the lines, the colors, the textures that a person has or a designer has created. So, if you're looking at jewelry pieces, for example, there's a certain design or texture that the designer has achieved, that is something that can be protected. The fabric that they create, if a designer creates their own fabric, then that can also be protected under industrial design. Industrial designs have protection up to 15 years, but the good thing with industrial designs is if a designer feels like it can be used for more than 15 years, then it can graduate to a trademark. If it's anything that has 3D dimensions as well, we have 3D trademarks. Okay. So that is a very good thing to be very aware of.
All right.
Then we have copyright, which protects the expression of ideas. We're looking at, especially in the fashion industry, artistic works. With copyright, you have to be very careful because, like I said, it protects the expression of ideas, which means your expression will be different from mine, right? Mm-hmm. So I have to be very careful in terms of how I handle copyright. Copyright needs a lot of support structure as well, but even with these other IP areas I've talked about, so contracts become very important, especially if you want to go the copyright route, because it's cheaper than the other three methods I have mentioned. Copyright is automatic. As soon as it's expressed, the idea is expressed, in a tangible format, then it's automatic to the creator. But we have a registration system that is highly recommended. And this is again because you want to be able to assert that you are the one who created this particular product or expression of idea. So then you have to register. It's prudent because then you have a title to it, right? For Kenyans, we like to associate property with land. So just like land, where you get a title deed, with intellectual property as well, it's recommended that you get your certificate. And especially on the copyright side, it becomes very important when there's a dispute, because then how do you prove that counterpart X, who's trying to claim the same thing against you, will succeed, right? So that registration is very important.
Okay.
And these are the top four IP elements that are considered.
Thank you so much, Liz, for that clear breakdown of the different IP laws that we should know about and what fall into IP laws in general. I just wanted to share with me what are some of the long-term advantages of intellectual property offers to fashion designers, or even just creatives as a whole.
The longevity of our business, one, and the identity of our business and the ability for our business to be able to show that they have assets. Because with intellectual property protection, you derive or you create assets, right? So the patent is an asset on its own. The industrial designs are an asset of their own. The trademark itself can be is an asset on its own, which means should you ever feel, the need to even sell, and you don't want to sell a whole company, you can sell the patent, you can sell the trademarks, and still be in the business if you want to be in the business, or sell in totality. When you look at industry, international designers, we always ask ourselves, why is it that Louis Vuitton, Christian Louboutin, and all these other designers, despite them being knocked off, are still in business? Yes. It's because they have really secured the intellectual property, and for them, they have been very deliberate with their territories, right? So they know their predominant clients are in the EU, in the US, in Asia. So you find that at the end of the day, it's of course it's detrimental to their business, but they still stand because in their primary markets they're secured. So despite in Kenya or in other African countries there have been knockoffs, they still prevail, and that's what intellectual property does for you. And when you look at some of the very, some of the legal disputes that some of these designers have employed, they've been very deliberate. So, for example, Christian Louboutin and the Red Heel, or rather the Red Sole, they have really fought for that. And even though in some countries they may have not won, but at the end of the day, the fashion consumer knows when I see a red heel, I am buying, or rather a red sole, I am buying Christian Louboutins, and they're happy, right? So it's really more in terms of securing their intellectual property assets and their products. And that's what intellectual property does for you. You create something that you could sell and make more money and maybe move your business to the next level. It gives you that identity you're identified in different fashion capitals, in different, even to the consumer as well. They get to know, I'm talking about Louis Vuitton, or I'm talking about, I don't know, Akinyi Adongo here in Kenya, or anyone else. So it's very important. IP is very important.
And when you look closely to the intellectual property system, law system in Kenya, earlier you had mentioned that IP laws really vary from the different countries. So what I wanted to know is, when you look at the IP system here in Kenya, what exactly does it cover?
it basically covers everything. What other countries have, we also have. What varies is maybe in terms of the new additions in terms of law in the using international instruments. Some of them we may not have adopted in our laws, for example, but we basically have that international framework that anyone, even in the US, would enjoy, right? In my view, our laws are very robust and progressive. We are very ahead actually compared to many of our African counterparts, and we're very competitive. So no one needs to worry about our laws not taking care of our artisans or our innovators or our fashion designers. We are very well equipped.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Now I want to take a short pause, Liz, but we'll be right back, talk about more on the role of IP rights in the fashion business right here on eTalk. We'll see you guys right after this break.